Welcome back to Chase's Everything Shooting. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Today we're going to talk about an uncomfortable subject, firearms insurance. I know it's not the most fun thing to talk about. You'd rather talk about reloading something or shooting something or whatever, but this is something I feel is very, very important and that everyone really needs to look into, because if you have any firearms, there's a possibility those firearms may get burned or stolen, and you want to be able to get your money back out of your firearms. Well, now let me tell you why I'm on this. When I moved to Texas, I had a regional carrier, insurance carrier, for my homeowner's insurance. And they covered my firearms, and I had talked to them about that. Not a problem with that. And about 6-7 months ago, I get this email and then a letter saying, hey, we've been purchased by a multinational company, and we are stopping homeowners coverage in your regional area. Okay, that's cool. You know, it happens all the time. So I decided, hey, I'm going to go out and find a new homeowners insurance carrier. Well, I called Farmers and State Farm and Geico and Progressive and Liberty Mutual, and you name it, I called it. Well, I decided on Allstate Insurance. And the only reason I really went to Allstate was the person was really good about returning phone calls. They were phenomenal. And so I said, okay, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I want the same coverage I had on my other plan, and I sent her my other plan. Well, then during the time we got the policies, I kind of looked at them, but I didn't look at them real aggressively. And I agreed to it. We got going, we got rolling, pardon me. And so I just kind of didn't even think about my firearms coverage. I just assumed, which you know what that does, it makes an ass out of you and me, that I was covered like I was with the other carrier. Well, I happened to call and said, hey, I've purchased some other assets. I want to make sure those assets are covered. Can you do me a favor and tell me how we set this all up? Well, we started talking about this. Yes, you're covered. No big deal. And then I asked about, well, I'm going to be acquiring some more firearms. What do I need to do to make sure that I'm covered properly? And she said, well, you know, you're covered for $2,500. And I thought, well, okay, $2,500. That's per firearm. That's not a big deal. Everything kind of falls within that range, and I should be perfectly fine. Well, then I got the policy, and I started reading it, and the policy said $2,500 total. Now I'm saying total. So, you know, 2 of my guns are going to surpass that $2,500. So I picked up the phone, I called her back and said, hey, you know, I'm looking at this. Oh yes, that's all the carriers. And I said, they all? She goes, oh yeah, and she named them off. Farmers, State Farm, Progressive, Geico, Liberty Mutual, and a bunch of others. They all have the same coverage we have. Now, if you want to cover those, we can write a separate rider to for those firearms. But you have to disclose to us the make, model, caliber, serial number, have a pictures taken of it, and have an appraisal done. And I said, well, first of all, I don't really feel very comfortable about sending a list of my firearms to an insurance company. And she said, oh, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it. I said, you know, I'm really thinking about this. I don't think this is a thing I want to do. I think the federal government, if they came in and said to you, Allstate, we want every information on all the people that own firearms and have them insured. I think you guys would just roll right over and give them a list of everything I have and what's going on. Now, do they know I have the firearms? Probably. But do I want to publicize it? No, I don't want to publicize it. So I progressed to say, hey, to her, I'm going to just leave it the way it is. I'm going to get insurance from an outside company to cover my firearms. That's when I started my research. Well, my research was just crazy. I went on the internet and looked and found all these different companies that would insure firearms. And I kind of went through them and kind of, well, what's good, what's bad. You know, I'm not an insurance speak person. Ask me about mortgages and I can tell you. Insurance, you're speaking Chinese to me. So I started reading all this information and trying to figure out all these different companies and who I should go with and all that kind of stuff. And so I kind of started to narrow it down to companies and their websites that I could kind of understand and get through. So out of those companies, out of all the companies on the internet, I really whittled it down to about 4 companies. Now, I'm not getting paid by any of these companies. There's no advertising on it. This is what my research came up with. And you do your own research and figure out what's best. But the 4 companies that I came up with were Lockton Infinity. Now, Lockton Infinity was a carrier for the NRA. And there was a way where you could cover your firearms and your membership covered so much and then you had to add coverage. Well, that has all changed since all the lawsuits and all that kind of crazy stuff with the NRA. So that company is still a great company, but they're just doing it on their own without the NRA. Another company that I found is Collectibles Insurance. And when I called them, I said, you know, I don't have a lot of collectible firearms. Most of mine are newer firearms, and they're really not collectibles. And we talked back and forth, and what it really boiled down to is that's their name, but that's not really what they do. They will insure your firearms whatever age they are. If they're collectibles or not, they have the ability to do that. I thought, okay, and we talked. And they've got some really good policies to do and insure, and at some very reasonable rates. So I would say that's one to really kind of look into. Along with my 4, you should call all 4 and talk to them and figure out what's really best for you that works with your budget. Now, the other one, the next one is, I should say, is SIAI. And it really is a shotgun website where they cover shotguns that are collectibles that are very expensive. I mean, there's some shotguns out there that are $50,000, $60,000. I don't have any of those, but that's their niche. They will cover all your other firearms, but their niche really is the really high-end shotguns. So another one to call and kind of see if that works for you or not. They were very, very nice on the phone and answered a lot of my questions, and they were very diligent, and if I ask them something, to get back to me to give that information. Now, the 4th company that I'd found is Guns and Trophy. And you're going, Guns and Trophy? Well, I kind of questioned that too. When I got on the website, they talked about if you're a big game hunter, your trophies and the expense. I mean, you know, some of those trips are $40,000 or $50,000 or $60,000. And then by the time you get your animal back here and you have it taxidermied and stuffed and mounted, you know, that's a very expensive hunt. So they cover not only your firearms, but they cover your trophies also. And I have to say, talking to them, they were really, really good too, because they had a bunch of different policies out there that you could do, and some had trophies, some didn't. I mean, I would just tell you, make the phone calls. I'm going to be putting up their phone numbers and web addresses up during this YouTube, so that way you can call and you can find out what works best for you. I will tell you, I'm probably going to end up with one of those 4. And I'm not going to say who, because I want to tout it. I don't want to, I'm not here to bring business in for anybody. If you call and you like the companies and you choose to use them, that's phenomenal. I think that's great. But I don't want to be here endorsing anything, because that's really not what I do. But during one of my phone calls with, I believe it was Locked in Affinity, I'm not sure, it could have been that or Collectibles Insurance, I said, well, you know, how often do firearms get lost, stolen, lost in a fire, flood, or whatever? And it was kind of interesting, because they said that the average is about 390,000 firearms are lost by being stolen every year. I said, really? Oh yes, there's that many that are stolen every year. Now, along with that, he goes, well, you know, last year wasn't that bad. There was only 380,000 stolen last year. Okay, that's kind of weird. Well, yep, it's a little less because of COVID. Okay, I get it. So I see that there's a need to cover my firearms. I'm one of those kind of guys. I want to make sure I'm insured on those, because I just feel I'm going to be the one that has their firearms stolen. So that's why I'm on this quest, is to find out what the best insurance company is and what to do. Now, one of the things that all 4 of them said is that we do not want a list of your firearms. Don't send it to us. We don't want to know anything about them. What we are going to do is we're going to require you to have an inventory list. Now, on your list, make, model, caliber, when you purchased it, how much you purchased it for, and what the value is today. And you can get that off of Gunbroker or whatever, what the value is today. But then they want a picture of it. You don't have to have appraisals. You just have multiple pictures of that firearm. Now for me, I just went in and created another spreadsheet like I did for my reloading and for my inventory of my ammo, and started using just one more portion of that. Now, I'm more than willing to send you what I use, and that's totally up to you. If you just email me or you leave me a message, I'll gladly send that to you. I'm not trying to make anything off of it. You probably can take it and make it way better than I've done, but it's just a basic start in order for you to have something that when the insurance company says, hey, you had a loss, we need this information, you can supply that information. Now, that's the only time you have to supply it, is if you have a loss. Other than that, you keep it on your own, and when you buy firearms, you add to it. You just keep doing that over and over until you actually have a loss. So I would tell you, don't put your spreadsheet in your safe, okay? So if your safe gets broken into or gets taken or whatever, you don't want to lose that. What I would tell you to do is make a printout, put a printout in your safe, put a printout in your Social Security, or your box at the bank, give it to a relative. You know, there's a lot of ways, but you shouldn't leave your inventory list out in the open where anyone can find it. And you don't want, if there's a fire or a flood or something like that, you want to be able to get to it. Your computer may crash, especially if it gets flooded or gets burned. You're not going to be able to log onto your computer. So you should be thinking about where you're going to keep it. One of the things I'm going to say right now, do not put it up in the cloud. I don't care what cloud service you have, don't put it in the cloud, because cloud services are hacked all the time. If at any time you don't make your cloud service payment, they can delete your data. There's nothing that says they can't. And if you look at all the paperwork, that is very factual. I've been watching that. Now that's why I don't use the cloud very often, because I'm not so sure that data is really mine. When I put it up in the cloud, it's mine, but it's theirs. It resides on their server. And at any time, that data can be hacked. They can look at it. They have the ability to do what they need to do with your data. And if you watch Facebook, that's Facebook now is saying, hey, anything you've got in your images are our images now, so you just have to check that box and know that's going to happen. So again, don't use the cloud. So I hope this has kind of helped you figure out what you need to do and how to cover yourself on your firearms. I'm going to tell you, this has been an eye-opener for me. If you have any great information, please post it. I learn from people posting all the time, so please do that. I appreciate you coming and watching. Do me a favor, subscribe and like. It doesn't cost you anything, and the great part about it is it helps me and the algorithm get out to more people who are firearms and shooting enthusiasts. Now remember, if you don't want to subscribe, if you hit like, that helps too. So at the end of this, I will put information out about my spreadsheet and show you how I did it. And then at the end, if you can just do me a favor, subscribe if you want to, definitely like, because it definitely helps. Hey, thanks, I appreciate it. I hope you had a great holiday.